Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to our new webinar about Resco Inspections, especially about the technical point of view. My name is Juraj Mojik. I'm a product manager here at Resco, and I will be your host today. I hope you have seen the first edition by my colleague Ivan, which was broadcasted around 2 weeks ago. But even if not, I think this will be beneficial for you to go through, because I will start with some basics and then continue with the more technical facts. Before I jump into the content, let me, as always, start with a couple of things around the organization. So, first of all, this webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be available on YouTube shortly after the webinar. This webinar will take approximately 60 minutes, and during this time you will be in the listen-only mode, meaning that you can hear only me, but you cannot speak. But if you have any questions about the content or anything related to the content, feel free to write them into the GoToWebinar application, into the chat window for questions, and I will answer them at the end of the webinar. So let's get started then, and let's start with the topic of our today's presentations, which are inspections. An extremely interesting and popular scenario between our customers as well as partners. And what we mean when we talk about inspections, we think about site, facility, or machine inspections. So really people going through places and inspecting a building, inspecting a part of machinery, and so on. But we also mean visits at a customer site, where the visit has a predefined set of questions that the mobile user has to ask the customer at the site. Of course, repairs with the predefined list of tasks, that is something we have in mind when we talk about inspections, but also assessments, health and safety, compliance assessments, but also quality assurance. These are all things which come to mind when we say inspections. In Resco's sense, we are talking especially about field inspections, so mobile workforce, which works often contracted and usually in campaigns. They perform visits at locations, so they do not stay at the office, but they visit someone, and usually they perform some check-in and check-out at the site. This then has some timer that is visible to the user, or it can be triggered by GPS tracking, meaning that the check-in and check-out can happen automatically based on the GPS position. At the heart of the inspection, there is usually a task list or a checklist or a questionnaire, which is usually dynamic. So really the set of the questions, set of the tasks, set of the checks that the user sees and has to perform at the site. Once at the site, they usually collect evidence, be it photos, videos, or even audio, and oftentimes they generate reports which are signed by customer. These can be electronically signed, or it can work offline. All of this has resulted in Resco Inspections, which is a new product or a module or an application, whatever you call it. In the context of Dynamics 365 or CRM, it's probably better to talk about module or an application for Dynamics 365. In context of the inspections themselves, we also offer standalone cloud-based product called Resco Inspections. The application and tools that you will use for this new module and product are new, but also existing. So the existing application, existing Woodford tool, but also a set of new tools like the Questionnaire Designer, which I will describe in a minute, or a new application which can be used to run the inspections as well. Very often at this point, I get questions about the field service, Microsoft field service application. So let me clear that right now. with the existing Microsoft Field Service application, which is the mobile application, which is based on Resco, at the very moment you cannot use the inspections right away, because the Microsoft Field Service app is based on an older version of Resco mobile app, and therefore the inspections are not part of that application. So you will need to wait for an update of the Microsoft Field Service app. So in the future it will be possible to use the inspections with Microsoft Field Service as well. But before I jump into all these technical details, let me explain what are we targeting with this new product and module. 4 roles: designing of the questionnaires, inspections, scheduling, so defining users and their work, execution of the inspection by the inspector, and finally analyzing the results. So the roles are described on the screen right now, and the designer who defines the questionnaires, the templates, the inspections, is usually not an administrator. This is a very important concept in the Resco inspections, because the designer might have business knowledge about what needs to be inspected, how the inspection needs to go, but it doesn't have to be a technical administrator who really defines the CRM system, manages and customizes it. The scheduler is usually a team leader or a manager who assigns the questionnaires or the inspections to users. The inspector is the mobile user who performs or executes the inspection, completes the questionnaire task list or the checklist. And finally, the analyst is used to analyze the collected data by the inspectors. Now, what you might be interested in is this information, which basically says that at the moment with our Q1 release, so with the version 11 of Resco, we have full support for the designer and the inspector, so for designing the inspections and executing them, and the scheduling and analyzing, even though to a certain extent they can be achieved with the version 11 as well. In Q2, so with version 11.1, we will have support for these 2 roles with their dedicated components for these specific tasks. So even though you can do analysis and scheduling right now, we will provide more advanced, more tailor-made components for these 2 roles in just before the summer. So let's start with the technical details of the solution. And as I said, at the heart of this, there are something what we call questionnaires or task lists or checklists. These are in Resco defined by what we call a questionnaire template. So again, this defines the questions, the items in the questionnaire task list or checklist. From now on, I will just call it a questionnaire for better clarity. So the questionnaire template defines the items, the structure of these items, and the logic behind a certain questionnaire. These questionnaire templates are created in the questionnaire designer, which is additional tool, new tool. It's not part of the Woodford, which is used by non-administrators. So as I have said, this is tool which is used by someone who has business knowledge but doesn't have to have deep technical knowledge. So when you will be working with inspections, there will be 3 components that you might use. Is the questionnaire designer, the mobile application used to launch, execute the inspection, and also the Woodford tool, since it is used to configure the mobile application, and of course you want to have custom configured mobile application for your users. The question is, of course, the main element of the questionnaire template. Simply put, it's the element that requires user input, so basically an answer. And there are different types of questions with different set of properties, like the name, description, if the question is required or not, what's the position in the questionnaire, what are the styles, there are flexible styling options for questions, and so on. The types of the questions are quite interesting because on the left-hand side We have questions that you probably expect to see there, like 2 options, date and time, numbers and text. But on the right-hand side are the more advanced questions, like lookups. So really we can do a reference to an entity or an object in your system. We can use option set and multi-selection option sets as well. And finally, images and signatures can be captured within the questionnaire. In the future, we will add more question types. These are the ones which are available at this very moment. And these questions can be structured in groups. So the groups can define a certain set of structure within the questionnaire with the title, description, and the set of questions. But additionally, these groups can repeat. And there are 2 ways how they can repeat. One way is when you define in advance how many times would they repeat. A typical example is a piece of machinery that you inspect, and it has 3 parts which are exactly the same. And you want to perform the same inspection for each part, so you create a question group, provide the set of questions, add some logic for that, and then define that this group is repeated 3 times, so the user will see it 3 times and have to go through it 3 times. But sometimes you don't know how many times a group will be repeated, and you let the user repeat the group. A typical example for this would be an inspection of a building where you are looking for some damage issues on the building, and you don't know how many issues the inspector will see, if there's damaged door, window, and a roof, or only 2 of them. So you let the inspector create as many repetitions of the group as they find issues. Finally, we have rules in JavaScript on the question template. We have the 3 standard rules, which you probably would expect if you have seen the Resco technology in the past. So basically onload, onchange, onsave rule, which are executed for the whole questionnaire, but also for each group separately. They can be used to manage visibility of the item, so you can hide or show different questions based on answered questions. You can check for validity by setting error message. You can even dynamically change styles on the questions. You see the screenshot here, and I know it looks at the first look as a coding, but it's not really true. It is actually really just clicking into the rule designer and defining the set of rules. It's not writing any code. It's all very visual, very design-like. So just the representation with ifs and begins and looks a bit like coding. But talking about coding, if there is a need for a very advanced functionality, something that is very custom or complex or very flexible, we also provide a way how to insert JavaScript into the questionnaire. Obviously, this is not intended to be used by the designer himself. Rather, this will be used by the partners who will insert or prepare the logic for the customer, and then they can reuse that on their questionnaires by cloning and copying the existing questionnaires, and therefore also copying the included JavaScript logic. So the overall process would look something like this. You would create a questionnaire template, add questions, and define how they will look. You will structure them into question groups and perhaps use separators for better clarity and maybe a more refined look of your questionnaire. You will also create rules to define the logic which drives the questionnaire which you have just created. Here the process doesn't stop. You need to perform a couple of more steps, especially in the Woodford configuration tool, where you need to enable inspections, and you have to do a couple of steps to set up the questionnaires. I will walk you through them in a moment. Finally, when you have done this, so prepare the questionnaires in the designer, enabled questionnaires in Woodford, you can start working with the questionnaires in the mobile application. So what do you need to do in Woodford? The first thing you need to do is, of course, enable inspections. That is just one checkbox which you need to flip in the mobile project, and the inspection entities will be enabled for you. You can add questionnaires on the home form, so all the questionnaires will be accessible from there. Or you can add unrelated entity list of questionnaires on forms and define some filtering. So if you want to see your questionnaires attached to an entity form, so to account or to appointment, you will have to do the third step, so to add unrelated entity lists, and I will be showing this in a demonstration. Finally, you also might want to define views for the questionnaires, like to separate templates and answers, and perhaps even different set of views that might be of use in your scenarios. What is important to understand is that the Woodford is the tool where you do the association to entities. So what I mean by this is that by default, there is no association of questionnaire and entity. So if you have a questionnaire and you want to use it for your products, or if you have a questionnaire which you want to see on a specific set of appointments or work orders, that is not by default available in the questionnaire designer. You have to do this association via Woodford, and you do it by custom filtering on the questionnaire and adding arbitrary conditions, so basically the conditions that you need to make the questionnaires associated to the exact set of the records that you want. As I said, I will try to do this in a demo, hoping that it will bring more clarity to what I'm talking about. Additionally, you can add lookup questions to your questionnaires and then use rules on the questionnaires to and use the relationship object to associate the questionnaire, the answered questionnaire, with a particular record. Let's talk a little bit also about the execution of the questionnaire, which basically means that if you take a mobile device or in the future a web form for executing the questionnaire, the user will here just select one of the templates which have been predefined by the designer, and this will create a copy of the template. So it will copy the questionnaire, the groups, the questions, and the user can start filling in answers into these question records. And to understand how this works, we need to talk about the data structure. And when talking about data structure, I want to have one note here, and that is the questionnaires in our inspection module are defined by data records. This is what Ivan has mentioned as the the record-based architecture of inspections, and not the entity-based architecture of the UI. This really means that up to this point, when you were defining a form in Resco, there was always an entity with some fields, and the form just represented the fields on this entity, very simplified. Whereas here, the items on the form, each item on the questionnaire form is actually a record, a question record, which we will use to create the UI. We call this approach data-driven UI, and it's really for us a gateway to very interesting future functionality, not only in regards to inspections. But let's talk about the data model in detail. So we have three main entities for the questionnaires: Resco Questionnaire, Resco Question Group, Resco Question. These entities are created when you import Woodford solution into your server, so they are automatically created for you. And if you create a template, then obviously the questionnaire would hold the template information, like the name of the template, description. Group template would contain obviously the information about the group, like how many times it is repeated and so on. And the question would contain the question definition, like the type of the question, the text of the question, possible answers, and so on. But where it gets a little bit more complex is that the same set of entities is used to also hold the answers. As I said, when you execute a questionnaire template, we create a copy of this questionnaire template. And since it's a copy, it has all the same fields, basically everything is the same, so we decided to store it in the same actual entity, Resco questionnaire. So the answered questionnaire will be also stored in the same entity, but it has one field, is template will be set to false. Obviously we copy also groups, but more importantly we copy also the questions. Now they will hold answers, so there will be fields called value or row value fields, which will hold the answers provided by the users. So in these three entities, you will find the template data as well as the answer data. This approach has helped us to gain one particular feature of Resco Inspections, which we call history snapshots. That means that every time you execute a questionnaire, we create the copy of that questionnaire at that moment in time. That means that all the rules that you have there, all the styles you have there, and more importantly, all the questions with their texts, with their provided values, are copied at that very moment. So as soon as someone answers, all this data is saved with the answer. This is very useful because if the designers will be modifying the questionnaires in the future and might even delete some of the questions, when you open the historical records, the answered questionnaires which were answered, I don't know, a half a year ago, you will still see the full set of questions, you will still see the same rules, even with the possible mistakes, so you will have the certainty that you have the snapshot of the answered questionnaire at that point in time. Which brings me to the actual demonstration. So I hope this part was at least a bit enlightening in terms of excuse me, what is possible and how the Resco inspections are implemented in the technical sense. And now I will start presenting the mobile application, or more precisely the Windows application that we have here. So this is a demo inspections environment that I have prepared. Let me just very quickly walk you through the standard questionnaire templates that we have prepared. They are the same as in Ivan's webinar, so I promise I will not go through these in too much detail, and rather I will focus on the second part where I will define a new questionnaire. But before I do that, let me just very quickly go through the existing inspection. So here in the demo application, we have it bound to an appointment. So now when I open an appointment via calendar, you can see that I have the appointment data, obviously, but moreover, I have two tabs here: inspection templates and completed inspections. We have three standard templates that we use for demonstration to showcase some of the features of the inspection. So I will open regular inspection. In our case, we are talking about a company which inspects elevators. So what they do here is they perform inspection of an elevator. And what you see here is that immediately at the start, the inspection has loaded data about the customer, so who is the account for the inspection, but also who is the inspector. So immediately some rules in action. Now, if I select the manufacturer, you can see that I have an option to select the model from the manufacturer of the elevator. But if I select the different manufacturer, you will see I have a different options here to select from. We have some standard questions for serial number, general state, operating time, and then we have some groups. This one is at first checking the cabin interior. Again, a couple of option set type of questions. So if I select OK for the lights, you can see that the style here was set to a different one, so I can immediately see that's all right. If I select damaged, you can see that a different style is applied for this item. So let me complete this one as OK. Similarly, I have the exterior where I can use the same approach. And now I have approach to the cabin issue group. Now this one is a little special because this one has a plus button in here, which indicates that there's a group which I can repeat. So again, this is for capturing issues which the user might see at the site. So let's say it's about the control panel, it has critical priority, and I can now select a photo, and if I have it here, you can see that I have uploaded a photo from my gallery. I can provide additional description. If I encounter more issues, I can just hit the plus and start adding more information. So they said the same set of questions, but a new group. I also have an engine room section where I can say the state of engine. Here you can see that based on the value provided here on the all level, in the description it is written that all level must be at least 25%. So if I put 30 in here, you can see it's all right. If I put just 20 in here, you can see that's not correct. So let's put 30 back. Again, I have a group which I can repeat. And at the very end, I have the inspection date. I can provide signature, save it, and have my regular inspection completed. Another template, fixing control panel, basically shows how a process might look like. So if here I go step by step, select manufacturer, model, and say I'm starting the repair. Then I can secure the car, turn off, set manual brakes, enter the cabin, move to next stage, and so on and so on. You probably get the idea. Additionally, I have the template for customer satisfaction, which is quite similar to what you have seen. Here I have just more two options, so basically more checkboxes or things that I can flick through. But what I wanted to show you here is that I can, on the completed inspections, I can actually run a report. Let me run the one for the customer satisfaction. And if I run that, you should see that I have the information from the actual inspection. So I can really create generate documents, provide signatures, provide the pictures which I collect during the inspection, and provide the attributes from the actual inspection. So this was the walkthrough to the existing questionnaires, existing templates, and now it's time to look at the questionnaire designer. So I'll just go here, and this is the designer. I have launched it through the web browser, so I went to our server and launched the inspection designer, and you can see I already have the 3 standard templates defined. So if I open one of them, you can see all the items in here. You can see all the logic provided within the rules. But rather than showing you how the existing inspection was done, let's create a new one. So this one I will call template service request. So imagine that our inspectors might encounter a situation where the customer actually wants to not only let us inspect the elevators, but maybe they want to get offer or they want to receive some services from our company. So this will be a questionnaire for requesting additional services. Now I can start adding questions into my questionnaire. So the first one which I will add will be the customer. So we need to know who that is. And I will select the lookup as the type of the question. And here I will add the logical name of the entity. So what I will add is an account. In the forthcoming versions, this will be automatic, so you don't have to write anything, you just select from the list, but right now I just have to write the option account. What is interesting, we can have multiple targets in here, so not just one type of entity. So I have my customer here, and now let's define the service. And since they might not request just one service, that can be more services, let's just add a question group. So this will be the service. We will allow the user to repeat that. Let's not provide minimum and maximum. Let's not copy the values because each service request will be probably different. So here is my question group service, and I can start adding now questions into that group. So the first question will be the actual service type. And I will do it as an option set, and that will be, for example, repair. That can be installation. That can be some maintenance, I assume. So something like this. Additionally, I can capture the price for the service, or maybe the desired price. Again, I don't need to provide anything in particular here, maybe just the precision to be 2, I don't know. And let's also add one more question, which will be 2 options, and it will be if the customer is eligible for discount. So this will be obviously yes or no. And if the customer is eligible for discount, let's also check what the discount might be. So that will be, again, decimal number, precision 2. So this will be a very simple questionnaire with the customer and the group for capturing the service. And now for the group, I can start adding some logic. And the first rule I want to create is what happens on the change. So when any of the questions within the group change. And what I want to do here is, since we have the discount there, but we also have the checkbox which checks if the customer is eligible for discount, let's make that question visible only if the customer is eligible for discount. So what I will do here, I will start with the changed item, so the changed question, and if it will be is eligible for discount, I will add a step, and this step will say that the question discount is visible, will be visible based on the value and is eligible for discount. So as you recall, this is a 2 options question, so yes or no. So if is eligible for discount the customer, discount will be visible. If is not eligible, the discount will be hidden. Simple as that. A very nice rule that we have here. Additionally, we can check for the discount itself, and we have price, we have discount, so obviously the discount shouldn't be more than the price. So let me add an else statement and check if the changed item isn't the discount. And if it is, Then let's add a condition that if the question discount value is greater than the question price value, so if what we have in discount is more what we have in price, then obviously there is a problem. So we should let the user know. And we let the user know by going under the question discount. We have the error message in there, similarly as we have on standard Resco forms, and we can set an error message. So discount can't be more than price. And in the case that the discount is less than the price, we can remove the condition and here just clear the error message, which might have been provided on the discount by previous execution of this rule. So this looks fine to me. We have the visibility rule, we have the rule for setting the error message, which can be used in not only for validation but by also making some of the question required conditionally and so on. So these were the rules for the group. So they will be repeated and they will be available for each of the groups. But we also have the rules on the level of the questionnaire. And here I have the customer lookup. So what I want to do is when the form is being loaded, I might want to set the customer lookup based on where the questionnaire has been executed. So what I will do here is I will add a condition and check if the questionnaire is new equals true. This means that the questionnaire hasn't been loaded from the database, so it's basically the first execution of the questionnaire before the user has saved the questionnaire. Now I add one more condition in here, and I will check something special. If the relationship object target contains data. This means that the questionnaire has been executed from a different form, and the data of that form will be available for us as the target. And here I will add condition, and I will check if that relationship target is of type appointment. So if this has been launched from the appointment form, I want to load that appointment, find out who is the customer on that appointment and set it to my question. And to do that, I have to add a variable in here. It will be entity type variable. We can call this one appointment. And it will load the full appointment because here we only have a lookup. So I have to load the full record, so relationship target, and select appointment as the target. So here in my variable, I will have loaded full appointment, and therefore I can do one more step, that in my questions, in the customer, in the value, I want to have, click XY here, I want to have the appointment regarding object ID, which is the customer on the appointment. Probably I should do one more step in here, check if the appointment has been loaded correctly and if the regarding object ID is actually in fact an account. But for the sake of simplicity, I will not do that part, and I'll just save my questionnaire. So this were the rules, and I think I'm pretty satisfied with what I have, so I'll just hit save, hit back. I have my new template in here. So what I can do, I can go back to the mobile, in our case Windows application. I probably haven't mentioned this, and you probably also know this, that our Windows app is really 99.9% functionally identical to our mobile applications. It's just easier for me to show you through the GoToWebinar, so that's why I'm using it. So right now, once I have performed synchronization, you might have noticed that there is no application was updated message. That really means that all that was needed to get my new questionnaire was the data synchronization. We didn't get any new configuration. We will be using the same configuration of the application that I have here. And you can immediately notice that the template service request has appeared in my inspection templates. And when I open it, the customer is Apollo Apartment Building. So let me just go one step back and check that, yeah, really, that's the customer on the appointment. Now I also have the service times, which I can select. I can provide the price. I can select that the is eligible for discount. And if I provide 130 in here, you can see the red. That means that we have an error message set for this particular item. And if I try to save my questionnaire, I will see the error message. If there are more items with error message set, I will see the first one. Now, if I provide 100, or let's provide just 12, you can see that the error message is cleared and I'm able to save my questionnaire. Additionally, I can create multiple service requests in one questionnaire, since this is a repeatable group. So perhaps just save this one. And this was the questionnaire designer, but in my presentation I was also talking about how to associate the template that we have created with a particular entity. And let's take a look at that. And instead of having this template service request on the appointment, let's take a look at how we want to make it available on the actual account form. So here you can see the account, and you can see that it has different tabs, address, map, and so on. So what I want to have here, I want to have here the list of all the available questionnaires for appointments, including, or let's say limited to, one particular template, which is the service request which I have just created. So how will I do that? How will I associate my questionnaire to the account? And for that, I have to go to Woodford. So let me switch to that application. Here we go. And I have a couple of projects in here. I'll open the inspector project. And I'll navigate to the accounts, open the accounts form, accounts edit form. So here is how the form definition looks like. And to get some list of questionnaires in here, my first look would be probably here on the right side, where Woodford detects from metadata what kind of entities can have a link to an account, but there is no questionnaire in there. So what can I do? And the trick here is to go for add list and select unrelated entity list. Where I'm selecting entities, you will see all the entities I have enabled in my project, and therefore I see also questionnaire entity. Unrelated entity list means that if I would choose any of them, put the list on there, I would see all the records in the list on this form. But let me select questionnaire, and let's add one more quickly from the right. So this one will be the templates, and this one will be the answers. But I haven't done anything yet. I've just renamed the lists. I need to define some filtering, because this would see all the questionnaires, all the templates, all the answered questionnaires right here. So what I want to do, I'll double click and I'll see properties of that tab. I'll just use the associated questionnaires view, and I'll add additional filter which will be valid just for this form, just for this tab. And in that filter, I will add a condition, and the first one is the obvious one, that is template, the template equals yes. So obviously here I want to have just the templates, but for the sake of the demonstration, let's say that I want to have just the service request template in here. And again, I can use any of the fields on the questionnaire to do the filtering. And in my case, I'll decide that I want to have the name which contains service as one of the as the only questionnaire templates that I will see here. Of course, you could do more advanced filtering. You could add your own fields on the questionnaires. You could use them then to filter and to maybe connect with certain types of appointments, accounts, work orders, with just particular types of questionnaires. But here is how you have to do it. You have to go into Woodford and you have to define the particular filtering on the form. For the answers, it will be a little bit more complex, since I have to do the same thing, select the associated questionnaires, edit filter. And this time I will go for is template equals no. And let's put there the name as well. So name contains service. But here I want to have the answers which were answered for this particular account. So how will I do it? I will add a link for the question. And I know I have a question there called customer, right? And I know that that customer might be might have a value for this particular record. And to do that, I could use the value, but actually for lookups, the value contains more information than just the ID. So I will use this field, row ID value. And I will select that it equals, and here by clicking set variable, I can see properties from the account form, which are of type lookup. So I'll select the ID. So here what I'm saying is I will see only those questionnaires that are not templates, that have service in their name. They have a question called customer, which is or has been answered with the ID of this particular account. So this should be the Woodford setup. Let me just quickly publish the project and switch back to the Inspections app. Okay, let's see. So I have my Apollo apartment building, and you can see here I really do have just one template, the template service, which is the one which I have defined. You can see the customer is not automatically filled in. If you recall what I have done, I have checked if the relationship is for the type appointment and only there set the customer. So there I would need to add the second set of rules, but let's not do that for now. And here I also have the answers for the template. Let me see, the last one is the one which I have answered just a moment ago. And as you can see, yes, that is the questionnaire that I have answered previously. So we've looked at the questionnaire designer. We've looked at the Woodford setup and how to associate the questionnaires with the forms. And one last thing I want to show you before I conclude my presentation and answer your questions is how the data are actually represented. And I'll just switch back to the Internet Explorer. And here I'm in our Dynamics 365 testing environment. This one has a slightly different set of questionnaires defined, but that shouldn't really bother you. What's important is that I've created a custom view for the questionnaires, which shows the Resco questionnaire entity. So as you can see, this really is data stored in the CRM system. The questionnaires are stored directly in the CRM. And when I open the site assessment, which is one of the questionnaires, you will see some information in here. Obviously, I could have the fields if it is a template and so on. But more importantly, I have a list of questions associated to this site assessment. So if I open, for example, date completed, you can see some information in here. Let me check. Probably I haven't filled that. I haven't filled that out. But let me open one of the more interesting question, which is, for example, the licensee, where you can see that this is a lookup type of question. It has been answered on this date. The value, as I have said, contains more information that you would probably expect, like the type of the entity, the ID, the actual name, and the name can be also seen as the value label. But here you have just the ID. This is especially useful for really working with the questionnaire, with the reports, with the filtering, and so on, as I have been showing in the first part of the demonstration. So here really what I wanted to show is that the data, the questions, the questionnaires are part of the CRM. You can build workflows on top of them, you can use them for reporting, and you can build additional functionality based on the questionnaire data. So I think that concludes the demonstration part of my presentation. I have actually 2 more slides for you, and then I'll look at the questions. So if you had any question in the meantime, feel free to write it to the GoToWebinar so I can answer it in a couple of seconds. What I wanted to address is what's the future for the inspections. And in 2018, we have great plans for the inspections. This is a new product which is really rapidly evolving. And as I have already said, analytic tools, dashboards, reporting, automatic dashboards, there have been already some work done on our end. So expect a lot in this regard, as well as with scheduling, so defining who is going to perform the inspection, when, and so on. We have more in terms of questions on our plans, like defining composite questions where you can combine different components and create a question. So put an image into the description so you can guide your users so they can see what they are supposed to inspect. Create folders if you have too many questionnaire templates, and you want to give them some structure, so also that is on our roadmap. Multi-language support, especially interesting in Europe, where you might have users with different types of languages. Currently, you would have to have different questionnaire templates for each language, but we want to have just one template with multiple language variations, let's put it this way. And of course, we want this to be available on the web for viewing and filling the questionnaires. Currently, you have to use the mobile application both for viewing and filling in the questionnaires. Here is a sneak peek at how the Resco Questionnaire Designer will look like in the next update. We are already working on a very modern look of the designer, and even for the creation of the templates. I really don't want to get too ahead of what we are going to release, but it's already looking very good, so I'm very excited about the Q2 release, so version 11.1, which will be released in June. Which brings me to the end of my presentation. And before I thank you for your attention, let me take a look at the questions and try to answer what you were interested in during my presentation. So there is a question from Danny. Let me just quickly read through it. So if the question was if you can tie the questionnaire to an order and to customer piece of equipment in CRM. Yes, that is definitely possible. I'm not sure if it was clear from my presentation, but that's the idea with the filtering. So you would basically define what are the conditions, so for which customers, equipment, or which order this should be used. And based on the filtering which I have shown on the unrelated entity lists, there you would define the filter so that particular questionnaire will show only for the orders or for the customer piece of equipment that it is related to. A question from David is, let me again read through it. I can probably open that window a little bit more. Okay, this is an interesting one. I know that this one is from the real use cases. So if the answers and questions can have expiration date, so if a question must be answered once a year, or you have to perform the inspection until the answer expires. Currently, we do not support this out of the box, but since this can be enforced with the mobile application, I assume that you would write the JavaScript part for this. But in the long term, this is an interesting area for us as well, since we know, and I have mentioned this in the beginning of the webinar, that there are often campaigns, and often it really matters when each question is valid. So in the long term, this is something we would like to have as part of the standard product. But right now, you would have to use other rules, but from my experience, probably more the JavaScript to achieve this. Okay, let's see. Question from another question from Nam. If the inspection module has evaluation for collected questionnaire, so I assume this is some scoring idea where you evaluate the questionnaire if it's valid, or I mean not really valid, but what are the scores if the inspection was completed as a success, or if the machine is in fact broken, or if the machine got too little points to address. This is, as I have mentioned in the previous question as well, this is something that we would like to have in the future. At this very moment, you would have to use the rules and the logic to provide this evaluation yourself. Daniel has unfortunately left, but he has questions about the check-in, check-out functionality and Microsoft Field Service mobile app. I answered the Microsoft Field Service at the beginning, so at the moment Microsoft Field Service app does not support Resco Inspections, but in the future there are some plans to have it working together. The question about checking and checkout functionality, this is something that we want to implement in the second half of the year, where there would be automatic check-in, check-out, or the user can press check-in and check-out when performing the inspection. This would then provide some time stamping on the inspection, probably also the geolocation, and additionally would set the application state that the user is in the work. So this could be used then for monitoring of the users and see what they are performing and if they have already started the work and so on. Two more questions from them. Advanced scheduling, task pool, and technician pickup inspection tasks themselves. That is not available at the moment. With the scheduling component, which should be available later this year, we will be targeting at the simple scheduling at first, but this pools and maybe some queues for the inspections, it's an interesting idea, and perhaps we should take a look at that as well, so I'll note it down. Oh yeah, I think that's the same question from them, so it was just the last question. So if this is everything in terms of questions, then I thank you for your attention. It was just exactly 1 hour. So I hope that this webinar was useful to you, and you will be now able to understand much more what the inspections are capable of and how you can use it. I will be more than thrilled to know how you would be using our technology, so feel free to let us know and contact us with any questions you might have in the future. And finally, please look out for the next release of the inspections, because as I have mentioned, a lot of functionality is going to be added, and the Q2 release will be quite feature-packed in terms of inspections. So thank you, and see ourselves probably next time.